Hello, it's Jess Howe. I'm here doing my learning teaching interaction today. My outline, I don't know if anybody else had this problem, but it ended up being like 6 pages. So I'll try not to go over everything exactly. You guys can read it if you want to, but we'll try to keep it under 8 minutes, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Okay, so first I went over the history, and I thought it was really interesting. The thing that caught my attention was the Smith-Lever Act of 1941 that brought family life education into the public forefront. And it just made me think that I believe that the strongest form of welfare supports welfare for the families. And it kind of talked about that throughout the readings, but if you can solve the issue of the family, then a lot of those other welfare issues will take care of themselves. I really like the idea of treating a problem, not a symptom. It also kind of reminded me when I was reading through the goals of that program, just to educate and to teach, it really kind of reminded me of Relief Society, that's kind of the role the church plays. And I thought about it, and at first I was like, oh, church is obviously the better setting for that kind of thing. But when I thought about it a little bit longer, I realized that it's important to have the religious with the secular, particularly for those individuals who are religious. I also thought it was interesting. It talked about how during that first section, it talked about how service learning and internships started to provide more availability of programs because students had to teach. And I guess that's kind of the point of this program. So just to remind me of this class. And under community efforts, I realized, we're all really responsible for this, for family life education, especially us who have the knowledge and education to be able to do so. And everybody talks about how important the family is, how it's our responsibility to bring our families back. But I think it's also really important to remember that we are part of one human family, and that's literal. And everybody is our family, and we're responsible for the well-being of others. So those were just a few things that stood out to me when I was doing this. I also thought about how important education is, because I feel like a lot of people make poor decisions simply because they don't have correct information or don't have access to some of this information, or don't know that they have access to the information. And I believe education to be a very powerful tool, because I've seen that in my life, and I make better decisions for my family because of that. I'm going to go ahead and go on to Family Life Education, Chapter 18. And one thought that it talked about how there's been more opposition now than ever before, but how there's also more tools to help the family than ever before. There's more studies, there's more programs, there's easier ways to get to lots of people through the web and programs like that. It was also really interesting to me reading through this when I was reading under professionalism, under that bullet. It's the first. Well, I mentioned there that people seem to need to be educated about the fact that they need to be educated. If they don't realize that they need something, or that their lack of knowledge is harming their ability to have an effective family, then they're not going to seek out those skills. and they have to believe that what they're teaching is correct too. And I know that's definitely true in my own higher education. But not only do we need to have people who want the information, we also have to, as family life educators, we have to have a way to provide an income for our own families. So that just kind of went under the professionalization of chapter 18. I also really liked what it talked about, a program rigor, because I thought it was just really interesting to read about people who say that they're family experts and that they give great advice. And in the parenting classes, you hear a lot of crazy, ridiculous, not true advice. And it just really reminded me of the importance of having a scientific method. Also, I thought it was really interesting that it's not enough for people to have correct information. It also has to be available, which reminded me of the scripture in D&C 123, where it says people are only kept from the truth because they don't know where to find it. So I believe true principles can touch everybody if we're willing to share them. Scrolling down, I'm going to skip to Family Life Education, Chapter 2. I pretty much wrote down everything, but the thing that really stood out to me was that when you're designing a program, it's not about you. It's not about what you think you know. It's about the individuals and what they need and what they need to know. And I also liked the approach of being able to have them share their experiences of when they might have acted on a principle without intentionally knowing it, and having that help. Now to chapter 16. I really loved reading about all of these principles. And the thing is that we want to make it so that the participants can be self-motivated, and that will perpetuate throughout their lives and throughout future generations. And I also really enjoyed reading about the behavior change characteristics, because I definitely see them in my life. And then I went down to Family Life Education, Chapter 1, pages 13 through 23. We just finished the rest of that, and I really liked what it had to say about developing your own philosophy, that you'll be most effective when you have your own values, and confidence and competence, which we talked about. And then finally in Appendix A, it talked about other principles that are important to remember. And a lot of these I hadn't read before, but I really like them. And it said at the end of the chapter to choose which ones you believed in, and I thought they were all good. So I don't know. But anyway, thanks for reading. I hope you all have a good week.